In dealing with debt, credit card companies are doing something that may surprise you. 70 million people had their credit card limits reduced or accounts closed. It's a very important topic, and we have Matt Schultz, Chief Credit Analyst at LendingTree, here to cover it all for us. Good to see you there, Matt.
Hi, Angie. Thanks for having me.
What is going on, Matt?
So our recent survey shows that about 1 in 3 cardholders in the past 60 days have had their credit card account closed altogether or have had a credit limit slashed on one of their credit cards involuntarily by one of their card issuers. It's a really, really big number, especially when you consider that for an awful lot of people right now, credit cards are a lifeline because so few people have enough emergency savings. What this really means is that an awful lot of people have had a safety net pulled out from under them during one of the worst economic times in our nation's recent history. So it's a significant thing.
What did you find in your study?
What we found was that higher income folks were actually among the most likely to have their card closed or their credit limit slashed. And it makes sense to a degree because the higher your income, the more likely you are probably to have a higher credit limit. And the higher your credit limit, the more credit limit you may not be using. And in a time of great economic volatility, a bank may see all of that unused credit and think, we're going to pull that back a little bit and reduce that limit. And I think that's what a lot of high-income folks in America are seeing right now.
Why are the banks that are backing credit cards doing this?
What this ultimately comes down to for banks is managing risk. With a huge spike in unemployment, with all of the economic upheaval caused by the pandemic, banks don't know what to do. They don't know who is a risky borrower and who is a safe borrower, because the truth is you can have a good job and an 800 credit score one day and be out of work and pretty financially shaky the next. And when banks can't get a handle on who is good to lend to and who's not, they tend to just pull back altogether. They retreat into their shells. They turn the faucet off in terms of lending, and that's what we're seeing right now.
What other groups of Americans are likely to get hit by having their credit card limits cut off?
Millennials are also among the most likely to have a card closed or a credit limit reduced. And I think that some of that is simply that millennials bought into a pretty big degree to the credit card rewards game prior to the pandemic. The previous years before all of this began, we saw an awful lot of millennials signing up for rewards cards and cashing in on free travel and all the bonuses and stuff that those types of cards entail. And what that means is that they have probably more unused cards sitting around than some other age groups might. And because of that, banks see all of that unused credit, all of those dormant cards, and think, let's go and cut some of that risk out of our portfolio.
Did you find anything positive in your survey?
Maybe the best news from this survey is that the vast majority of people who said that they had been impacted by a credit limit reduction or a card closure said that the issuer had actually notified them of the move. And it may sound weird that that is positive news, but the truth is that in many cases, issuers don't have to tell you that they are going to close your card or that they are going to reduce your credit limit. You may find out about it inadvertently because your card gets rejected, for example. The reality is that when a bank closes a credit card or reduces a credit limit because that card is dormant or inactive, they generally don't have to tell you. But the percentages of people who said that they were notified is a pretty good indicator that most banks are going ahead and letting people know that this is happening, even though they don't necessarily have to. And that's a really positive thing.
What can credit card holders do?
there's really no foolproof way to make sure that these things won't happen to you. But if you're concerned about it, your best move is simply to spend on those cards that you haven't spent on recently. Now, you shouldn't do it irresponsibly, and the last thing anybody should do is spend extra money that they don't have to try and prop up a card. But if you have multiple cards, consider using one of your lesser used cards the next time you go to the grocery store. Or consider putting a small recurring monthly fee, like a Netflix subscription or some other streaming service, on one of those little used cards. That way, it keeps the card active. You can set auto pay so you don't even really have to think about that charge anymore. And it keeps that card active, at least in a small degree. And that may be enough, no guarantee, like I said, but that may be enough to keep that card off the chopping block.
Well, that is certainly good to know. Thank you as always, Matt.
Thank you for having me, Angie.
For more Business First AM, check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And go to businessfirstam.com for where to see our show on TV.